Today, we're diving into one of history's most jarring and disturbing figures, Gilles de Rais. How could a man be both a celebrated national hero in 15th century France and also a monstrous, almost unbelievable killer? So this is the guy, right? This is the image that history gives us at first. He was a decorated knight, a major leader during the Hundred Years' War, and even became Marshal of France. That's the highest military honor you could get. He even fought side by side with the legendary Joan of Arc. But that's not the whole story. Not even close. Because this celebrated hero has a far, far darker legacy. This is what Gilles de Rais is really remembered for today. Not the battles he won, but the horrific crimes he committed. Okay, so that's the central question, isn't it? How on earth does this happen? How does someone with that much fame, power, and glory fall so completely? That's what we're going to try and figure out. To really get the fall, you first have to understand the incredible heights he fell from. His story starts at the absolute tippy-top of the French aristocracy, in an age where power was really all that mattered. And I mean, just look at this family tree. The amount of power packed into his bloodline is insane. He wasn't just some run-of-the-mill noble. We're talking about the houses of Cron and Laval. These were the absolute top-tier families. He was literally born into immense wealth and privilege. And this map really gives you a sense of the scale we're talking about. In 15th century France, owning this much land wasn't just about being rich. It was about having raw, almost king-like power over castles, armies, and entire populations. Let's put a number on it. His annual income was estimated to be around 50,000 livres tournois. To give you some perspective, that was an absolutely staggering amount of money back then. We're talking the kind of wealth that could fund entire armies or build cathedrals. So with all that power and money, he builds this incredible military career. He proves to be a brilliant, ruthless commander. By 1429, he's a central figure at the famous Siege of Orléans, and his victories are so decisive that he's made Marshal of France that very year. For a while, he was a true national hero, and he seemed completely untouchable. But after the wars, he steps back from military life. And this is where the story takes a very, very dark turn. The hero we thought we knew starts to disappear, and something else, something monstrous, begins to take his place. You know, the first signs of trouble are actually with his money. Despite having this bottomless fortune, he starts spending it so extravagantly on his court, on huge theatrical shows, that he actually has to start selling off his family's lands. His own relatives get so alarmed that they accuse him of just burning through his entire inheritance. And then his money problems spiral into straight-up lawlessness. And this is where things get truly wild. He literally kidnaps his own mother-in-law to protect his inheritance. He completely ignores the courts and just uses brute force to get what he wants. The key thing here is that he's starting to act like he is completely above the law, accountable to no one. You know, when you look at these ruins of his castle, it's almost the perfect metaphor for the man himself. His fortune, his honor, his entire moral compass, it was all just crumbling away. So you can probably see where this is all heading, right? This rapid decline, this total contempt for any authority, it was setting him on a collision course with both the church and the state. The final straw comes in 1440. He assaults a clergyman and seizes a castle. Now, by violating the sanctity of the church, he made a really powerful enemy, the Duke of Brittany, who finally had the justification he needed to go after a man this powerful. And it's during the investigation into that crime that the true, unthinkable horror of his life is finally revealed. The court starts hearing testimony that accuses him of raping and murdering more than 140 children. In a country that was torn apart by war, where peasant children could disappear without anyone really noticing, the sheer scale of it all finally came crashing into the light. So he's put on trial in two separate courts. The church tries him for heresy and sodomy, sins against God, and at the same time, the secular court tries him for the worldly crime of murder. They basically hit him with everything they had. The verdict came down fast, and it was final. The once celebrated Marshal of France actually confessed to his crimes and was sentenced to death. On October 26, 1440, he was hanged and his body was partially burned. A truly grim end for a man who was once a national hero. But here's the thing. His story doesn't really end with his execution. After his death, The real historical Gilles de Rais begins to morph into something else entirely, a myth, and even a modern archetype. What's so interesting is how we see him today. Criminologists often point to Gilles de Rais as one of history's first ever documented serial killers. Of course, that term didn't exist in the 15th century, but his pattern of crimes, it fits our modern definition to a chilling degree. He's also famously connected to the fairy tale character Bluebeard. But, as you can see here, that connection is fuzzy at best. Gilles de Rais was a real person who murdered children. Bluebeard is a fictional character from a much later century who murdered his wives. It's a really fascinating example of how dark historical truth can get twisted into folklore over time. And that brings us to our final thought. The story of Gilles de Rais is just this chilling reminder of the profound darkness that can hide behind a shiny facade of heroism and nobility. So it really leaves you with a question, doesn't it? How many other monsters in our history books are just hidden behind a hero's mask?